All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming to our Black History Month panel with the BSU. Because this is only going to happen during the first period and we don't have a whole lot of time, we definitely would love to have more time so students have so much more time to talk about their experiences and share their experiences with you all. But we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to turn it over to Kamilah, and she's going to kind of lead this with some other students as moderators. So enjoy.
Hi everyone, I'm Kamilah Lige. I'm your first moderator. I am a senior at Del Norte and I'm president of the Black Student Union, and I'm also a member of the DNHS Equity Task Force.
Hello everyone, my name is Dixon. I'm also a senior at Del Norte. I'm the social media manager for our Black Student Union.
Okay, I'm gonna get into our first slide. I'm gonna give it over to Zion to do the audience agreements.
Alrighty, so some of our audience agreements that I would like to announce before we get started is to make sure to listen and learn, not to refute or respond, as well as listen with empathy rather than judgment. And every person's experience is unique and valid, so keep that in mind. As well as please save any questions you may have until the end and direct your questions in a private chat to a co-host if you have any. Individuals' experiences differ even within the same community. Refer from making generalizations about the Black community based on panelist answers. And I'm going to go ahead and put it back to Kamilah.
So happy Black History Month, first and foremost, everyone. So today's panel focus is We Are the Blueprint. And so we will be discussing the importance and influence of Black culture. And our goal for this panel is to uplift the voices of Black students in this district and give them a space to share stories about their identity and also experiences, and then also to educate you guys on the diversity of the Black experience. And I'm gonna first get started by introducing our panelists for today. So like mentioned, I'm Kamilah, I'm your moderator, I'm from Del Norte.
I'm Zion from Del Norte as well.
And then to introduce our panelists, I'm gonna have them state their names, pronouns, their grade, and then who they dedicate this panel to. And I'm gonna begin with Ella Gregory.
All right, so I'm Ella Gregory. I'm in 12th grade and my pronouns are she, her. And I would say that I dedicate this panel to all the students at Del Norte and at other high schools who have stories to share and want to be heard.
Hi, my name is Djoser Burruss. My panelist, I'm in 9th grade, and I'd like to, my pronouns are he, him, and I'd like to dedicate this panel to everybody who's not on this panel but would have things to share as well.
Hi, I'm Reana Jones, and I'm a junior. I dedicate this panel to all the schools, and I go by she, her.
Hi, I'm Amaya. I'm in 11th grade. My pronouns are she, her, and I dedicate this panel to all the Black people at our school that want their stories and voices to be heard.
Thank you so much to our panelists. Our panelists from Westview, Lauren and Luna, were not able to make it today.
Alrighty, so today our first question for our panel is going to be, what does We Are the Blueprint mean to you?
All right, so We Are the Blueprint means a lot to me because a lot of the time, like in school and just outside on the internet, I see a lot of people disregarding Black culture, and to have the panel theme be We Are the Blueprint means a lot because it just makes me acknowledge that we're still important and that people may appropriate our culture, but it's still really important.
So We Are the Blueprint to me means that our race and our culture have grown to be such a strong influence on others, that as a result, our society has been able to accomplish a lot, but more often than not, our actions don't really get acknowledged. So having these discussions just highlights the importance of all we've accomplished and how much our culture is still relevant and is important, not just to us, but to other people as well.
Okay, yeah, I just broke it down like the definition of blueprint of something is a plan or set of proposals that show how it's expected to work. And I just said we are the plan, like whether it's like we're expected to like sit back and like let the government and society like, because they're obviously like working against us, and we're supposed to sit back and let it happen. And then I said like the set of proposals was, you know, like the police brutality, and then the police not being found guilty. It was like the kind of expected to work. And it's the same with schools, like the racist comments getting covered up with jokes. And when racism is being addressed at school, the person is never like held fully accountable for their actions.
Thank you guys so much. That was amazing responses. I'm so happy we're able to have this space to share our thoughts and our feelings. Our second question is, what aspects of Black culture do you see ingrained in American culture? And we're going to start with Amaya.
I said that some of the aspects that I see like in culture, in like today's culture, is like people listening to like Black music, like Summer Walker, SZA, Janae Aiko, Kendrick Lamar. And I feel like a lot of dances that we see on TikTok are created by Black creators. And like TikTok is like everyone has it, so it gets like widespread and like gets like viral and stuff like that. And I also feel like certain like male haircuts and stuff like that are also like engraved into American culture.
Yeah, to add onto what she said, I see influences of Black culture in the way like people will braid or do their hair or how they speak using certain like dialects or terms. A big issue would be like people would use AAV or African American vernacular English or code switching, not really knowing what it truly means or stands for. And I feel like there's a heavily influence of like Black culture, like Amaya said, on like music and clothing style. And when new trends become popular on social media, it's often like overlooked and not recognized as something that came from Black culture.
Thank you, Ella. I would just like to add AAVE is a really big one that I see ingrained in American culture. Sometimes at school on like a daily basis, I will see people use AAVE to sound cool or to fit in, and it's honestly really tiring sometimes because they'll use words like the N-word and they will completely diss our culture.
Some things that I see ingrained in our American culture in today's society would definitely be like hairstyles that we have like started, such as like cornrows, box braids, just like any protective style. I see a lot of non-Black people try to use our hairstyles as like a joke or as a way to feel like they can invite themselves into our culture rather than actually being a part of it. So yeah. Alrighty, so our third question for today is going to be, have you felt that your identity has been accurately represented in your classes? And the first panelist I would like to call on to answer this question would be Amaya.
I said growing up, I felt like that my identity was like underrepresented, like mostly because like we learned just about like white Europeans and stuff like that, and like pilgrims and stuff. So I feel like the only part of my identity that was like talked about was like the slavery portion or like the segregation portion, and not really like the triumphs of like Black people. But I feel like as we're becoming more diverse, people are more willing to learn about like the culture of Black people.
Yeah, I said there's been like some effort here and there, like in my classes, but I said like no. I said we're still fighting for representation, like students and teachers, like mainly teachers, because I don't remember the last time I've had like 2 or 3 Black teachers in my school to this day. And the school like representatives are majority white, and I'm specifically talking about like ASB, and I personally don't think they're good representatives. And they seem to only kind of like promote the white students, and the minorities are kind of like helping, but they're not getting promoted on like the broadcast and stuff. So yeah.
I like to say that I'd answer no, because even though a lot of us do learn about Black culture in our classrooms, it's usually about like the stereotypical like Martin Luther King or Harriet Tubman stories like about slavery and segregation. And I feel like even though those are good to start with, I feel like they've been reused over time. So I feel like there should be more Black people that are acknowledged, because there's a ton more that are really influential and deserve to be talked about.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that. Like growing up, I used to live in Austin, Texas, and then I moved to California around like the age of 9, and I've never really seen like other Black students in my classes. And even at Del Norte, we're like of the minority at our school. And it wasn't until a couple weeks ago, like back in, I think it was it was this month, when our BSU club went to, or we had Black College Expo. And I feel like that was kind of like a real big culture shock for me, especially just because like I have British parents, and like everywhere I go, we're not necessarily like African American, we're like Black Brits. And so my experience has been a little bit different. But um, going to the Black College Expo was a real culture shock, because it was really nice to see like other people around you, like you around you. And it's not to say that going to Del Norte, like it's been like a terrible experience for me, but it was really nice, just feeling like comfortable seeing other people that are like me go through the same experiences. And especially because in our classrooms, we don't really hear a lot about our culture. Like Amaya said, it's normally about stories of struggle rather than our successes. And I would like to like highlight all the triumphs that we've done and like the things that we've been able to accomplish.
It may be a very tiny thing, but seeing the college flags or pennants in my classes that are historically Black colleges is something really tiny, but I just feel like it really adds to noticing our culture and seeking out to make us feel comfortable, because those HBCUs, historically Black colleges, are something that the Black culture is like, it's a big part of our culture. So seeing that in my classes is something that makes me feel represented. Our next question is, to anyone who has taken credit for your cultural identity in the past, what is something you wish you could say to them? And I'm going to start with Rihanna.
I just said worry about who you are and not anyone else.
Right. Maybe short and simple, but it's like just be yourself, basically. I feel like that can go a long way. And Djoser?
I'd like to tell them that they're like contributing to like a much bigger problem, and even though it may seem small, like on a social level, like at school, disregarding and like appropriating and stealing someone else's culture can cause like generational trauma. It's like contributing to the bigger idea of racism, and it's really unhealthy for everybody.
I feel like you should just like appreciate the culture, but also like give credit when it's due. Like, obviously, I'm not like saying like appropriate Black people, but like I feel like you can appreciate and do things that Black people do, but like not take credit for it. Like, say like listening to music and stuff like that, or doing a dance. And I also feel like people seeking or pursuing more Black-based education can also be a way to appreciate more Black culture.
Yeah, I think just making sure you know the difference between what cultural appropriation versus appreciation is. And when you take that into account, you can be more aware of like what your actions are, and understanding that if like you think something about someone else's culture is cool, like taking the time to question if what you're doing is respectful, and if you should just appreciate it rather than claiming it as your own or taking credit for it.
Right, I agree. Sometimes you just kind of have to just stay true to yourself. I understand it's like we mentioned AAVE, it's like we see it on a daily basis and people use it to look cool or fit in, but I think staying true to yourself is really key. And our moderator, Zion, would you like to answer this question as well?
I would love to answer this question, Kamilah. Thank you so much for asking. Personally, I would say don't just do something or partake in something just because your peers are doing it. Just because it seems to be a trend, like in your cult, like in your social group, doesn't mean that it's okay. So yeah. So our last question for today is going to be: in what ways can others show cultural appreciation to Black culture?
I think like I was saying before, I feel like they can show appreciation by like wanting to like seek more Black education, stuff like that, and wanting to learn more like beyond like what we talk about in class, like just Martin Luther King, like Rosa Parks and stuff like that. And also like seek more education beyond what we already learned in school.
Definitely. Thank you so much. That is so true. I feel like we definitely should be giving praise to like smaller Black businesses and just like small communities that aren't recognized. And so the next person I would like to answer this question would be Rihanna.
Yeah, so I said talking more about Black accomplishments instead of Black struggles. One thing my ethnic studies teacher said was talking about slavery, Black oppression, and racism against Black people is white history, not Black history, because it's usually white people against Black people, like, you know? So, yeah.
Adding on to what Rihanna said, I'd say like maybe watch movies that aren't about Black struggles or like more like Black success stories like Creed or other things like that instead of watching, I don't know, 12 Years a Slave. And although they're good movies, it's better to have a verdict that Black people can also be successful. And also I would research ways to learn how to credit Black people for things you do. So like if you were to post a TikTok dancing, making a dance that a Black person originally did, I would, make a habit of like tagging them in it and making sure that people know that they did it first.
Yeah, I just said learning about Black culture, listening to other people's stories, be respectful, or like learn more by watching like more documentaries, um, and like understanding bias and taking the time to like self-educate yourself, and also being willing to like acknowledge the implicit bias that you have and making a more effort towards like getting rid of that. And
Thank you. So, appreciation is really when someone seeks to understand and learn about another culture. And this is an effort to like broaden their perspective. And I think this is the best way to show cultural appreciation by listening to our stories, for example, being an audience member in this panel and understanding the implications behind the aspects of our culture, I think is a great way to show cultural appreciation.
And to conclude this question, I would also like to add, when it comes to cultural appreciation, I definitely feel like you should have an open mind and know where things like originated and just know like if you're going to partake in one of the cultural activities or traditions, make sure that you're doing it not in a way that it's more appropriate, like appropriating rather than appreciation. And that would be
So now I would like to direct the rest of our time on this panel to give you guys the opportunity to ask us questions. So please direct your questions privately in the chat to one of the co-hosts. So our first question is, what can teachers do to uplift students more? And I'm going to hand this one to Zion.
what teachers can do to uplift students more. Teachers need to start not only representing a certain culture group when it's that history month. I feel like in specifically like PUSD, we tend to only like focus on, like, for example, since we're right now in Black History Month, that's when teachers feel like we should then start talking about Black history and, for example, like Asian Pacific American month, no, Pacific Asian American month, yeah. Um, that's when stuff starts becoming like a trend, or that's when it should only be talked about. And I feel like it should be an annual topic, not just only in that month. So yeah.
I think just getting Black teachers into like the curriculum as well, because I feel like specifically when you have a Black teacher or a minority teaching ethnic studies, it kind of provides like a more understanding because you're kind of coming from a point of view from someone who's experienced it.
Right, I totally agree. Ethnic studies and ethnic literature are, it's really a great class to really put in those core ideas about Black culture because essentially, you're teaching that to a whole class. So I really think it's very important that you have the right minds and an open mind when teaching about ethnic literature, ethnic studies. And would any of our panelists also like to add anything?
Yeah, I just say for like to promote more classes that promote like ethnic learning, like ethnic studies. It's not a very popular class. I'm in it. There's only like 14 other people, including me, so it's pretty small. And even then, not everybody's there, so it's a pretty small class. Not all the seats are full. So joining classes like that can uplift those stories. So like if nobody can hear those stories, then nothing's gonna change.
Okay, thank you guys so much for answering that question. Our next question is, what are everyday examples of cultural appropriation that we can spot?
I would love to answer this question. I don't want to tell you specifically, it has been a trend to have do-rag Fridays. And it's basically where a group of kids who are non-Black, aren't Black, wear do-rags to school and try to make it like a joke and like try to have like this Black scent and try to have like this appearance of being someone who's Black, even though they're not. So I definitely feel like that's something that needs to end. Another thing would be getting box braids or like protective styles, even though like your hair isn't made for that, and then make a joke or like come up to an actual Black person and try to like make them uncomfortable because you are participating in one of their like cultural like traditions or like their cultural takeaways. And yeah.
I feel like we talked about before, like AAVE like plays a big part of like mostly of like the appropriation I see, like people saying like y'all and stuff like that, and like finna, like and not using it correctly, like appropriate us, like at least make it make sense.
Okay, thank you so much, Amaya. We're going to get on to our next question. Our next question is, how have you witnessed / experienced performative activism or saviorism during Black History Month and in general?
I would say like not I've had many problems in my school where there was like, racism, like comments, like I said earlier, covered up by jokes. And there's always like a little investigation going on. But like I said before, also like there's never held to like a full accountability for their actions. Like the consequences are either mild or they don't get consequences.
I would love to add because I have personally gone through this. I've been aggressed by one of the kids on campus, and I brought it up to like the office, and nothing ended up happening. And it definitely like made me feel some type of way because as a Black man, I'm always going to be pointed out as the aggressor rather than the victim. And it definitely makes me feel like I'm being like overlooked rather than like heard, and it's not really like benefiting either of us because it's like no one's understanding what they did wrong because there's no consequences going along with their actions. So yeah.
I think just like integrating like Black history like into more of our curriculums like outside of just history classes, because I feel like in our classrooms we have a diverse set of bodies like sitting in the room. I don't feel like it's difficult to share stories about the experiences of other people, and yeah, just being like more mindful and like open to having other people share their stories when it's like coming to class discussion time, and avoiding, because I've heard of instances in the past where like in English classrooms when when we're reading books like To Kill a Mockingbird where the N-word is in the story. I've heard of certain teachers like allowing their students to say the N-word while they're reading the book, or on the audio recording, sometimes it's someone who's not Black who says the N-word, and I feel like it can make especially like Black students feel uncomfortable. So just making sure that our spaces are free of bias, free of stereotypes, and trying to be more anti-racism.
I feel like incorporating more like Black education into like regular English classes, because obviously we have like ethnic studies and ethnic lit, but I feel like instead of it being its own separate thing, like I feel like it should be more incorporated with like regular English, so everyone's learning about it and not just people who picked a certain thing in their schedule.
Yes, I totally agree, Amaya. Black History Month, I understand it is just a month, but being Black is not just the moment. We have to be Black our whole life, of course. So just seeing people only maybe reaching out to Black students during Black History Month is ways to not, that is not the best way to go about representing us, because that's a little bit of performative activism, because you're just seeing us during Black History Month, but we are here the whole year long. So considering that this is our last question, would anyone like to add their final thoughts on this question? Okay, I would just like to give a huge thanks to all of our panelists who were able to share their stories and be brave and vulnerable to our audience. And thank you so much for attending and learning about others' experiences and opportunities. Um, we appreciate you guys so much, and I'm so happy that we were able to do this. It really set out a big bang this beautiful Black History Month. Um, and thank you guys so much.
All right. So I just want to reiterate the thanks to all of you. Like Kamilah said, um, we love to hear our students' voices, and especially since we have students across the district. Hopefully next year we can get like all the high schools together and do a much bigger panel. But we definitely appreciate Reana and Amaya coming and enjoying this panel. And just to put things in perspective, a lot of what these students talked about, I shared those same experiences as a teen and growing up, especially being from the South. So it's nothing new. I think a lot of times when we talk about social justice issues, sometimes we think it's kind of like a new trend or whatnot, but it's not. These are things that people in the Black community have been experiencing for decades, obviously. So I really appreciate them coming out and sharing their stories and you hearing their voices, and hopefully that'll allow us to have better appreciation for them and their culture in these schools. All right, and I think that is it, unless anyone has anything else to say. I think we are done with our panel. All right. Once again, thank you to all our panelists and our moderators. Great job. Really appreciate it.